Breaking right now, the Ofcommunists strike again. The UK government censor is attempting to ban Nigel Farage altogether from being able to present on GB News. And this would apply actually to any politician. Here's the headline in the Daily Telegraph. Politicians to be banned from presenting news after Farage row. Ofcom's crackdown threatens to reignite a clash with GB News over using MPs as presenters. Now, I find this so ironic on so many levels, by the way, because GB News is actually fast becoming a form of controlled opposition. Part of that maybe is because of the huge pressure that the Ofcommunists have pushed for. But I'll give you an example of its political editor, Christopher Hope, just yesterday. And you've got to listen to this very carefully. He's talking about Labour and the results that Labour received recently at the local elections. And he talks about we. Watch.
Demonstrating, because anytime you've got good weather, they're coming. So it demonstrates that the policy of smashing the gangs isn't working, because if it was, it wouldn't matter what the weather was.
Mark, just stay with us and have a listen now, because we've got Christopher Hope, who's at the scene of that news conference there. Chris, of course, is our political editor. As to how did you feel that the Prime Minister performed?
I think he's quite confident, actually, Eamon and Ellie. I think the politics of this, which is my job to look at that, is fascinating. We had the disaster at the ballot box a week last Thursday when Reform UK surged and won all those councils.
Did you hear that? We had the disaster at the ballot box, a Freudian slip. But of course, Christopher Hope has been increasingly attempting to get close to the Labour administration so that Labour doesn't effectively shut GB News down. That's madness. Don't negotiate with your enemy, stand up to them. And there is this farcical situation at the moment where Christopher Hope interviews Nigel Farage on a regular basis, but he struggles to present his own show. So, for example, after the big Keir Starmer immigration announcement yesterday, we had Farage popping up on his employer being treated as if he wasn't part of GB News. Watch.
Labour are tackling immigration. Are you worried?
Really? Really? They weren't before May the 1st, were they? I mean, Keir Starmer has spent his whole career campaigning for free movement of people, wholly unconcerned about this subject, so much so that their massive parliamentary majority was gained without immigration even being one of their five main priorities. Now, of course, he knows that amongst the great British public, this issue rates even higher than the health service, and he's just basically playing catch-up with reform.
What do you think when you heard Sir Keir Starmer talk about we risk becoming a nation of strangers, these forces tearing us apart? This is language you wouldn't have heard the PM say, I think, before the elections.
You wouldn't have heard the PM say it at any point in his life. This is not the conversation of the North London dinner party set, believe you me. No, I mean, many of the things he said are the same things I've been saying for over 20 years. And that's Starmer's problem. Insincerity. What does this man actually believe in other than trying to keep power for its own sake?
But GB News is hitting back at Ofcom, confirming that Nigel Farage will return to host his show next month. Now, let me bring in Dr. Philip Casali, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum now. Philip, this is a fascinating one. Officially, Nigel still can present his show because his show is actually not considered a news show. It's considered current affairs. But it means Ofcom, the Ofcommunists, have introduced all of these new regulations. So Nigel Farage wouldn't be able to talk to a reporter, for example. And of course, all of these regulations are just ludicrous, in my view. There should be no state regulation of free speech. There's no regulation at this point, thank God, of a platform like mine. But it isn't part of the issue that GB News has bowed down to this madness.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan. It's such a mess. I mean, first of all, Ofcom can't apply their own rules because they actually don't even understand their own rules. Okay. And in the past, we've had people like David Lammy presenting shows, so comedy's involved as well here. I think that...
I mean, they didn't give a damn about that, did they?
They didn't give a damn about that. They only give a damn about it when Nigel Farage and Reform are absolutely surging in the polls and they're surging in elections and they are a massive, genuine threat. But yes, I agree with you. I think GB News needs to look at itself. It needs to look at its audience. It needs to kind of reevaluate, I suppose, what it is and where it's going. Let's just be clear about this. People don't want public service broadcasting anymore. Okay, people want more commercial options, but they also really want independent broadcasters. Okay, and that is absolutely the future. Shows like this, channels like New Culture Forum, and lots of other channels that are getting huge views. Okay, that's what people want, because people don't want the kind of the establishment narrative. And in the previous stories that we saw absolutely the establishment narrative, and people don't want those lies anymore. Why should they take them? Because they can get the truth on Twitter straight away. They can go on various kind of platforms and social media like this one, as I've already said. So they really don't want that whole kind of sanitized lying nonsense narrative, and GB News needs to somehow remove itself from that whole set of people rather than going closer to it.
I totally agree. I completely agree. And of course, for me, it's very disappointing to see the way that GB News has capitulated. But I remember even when I was there, Philip, having discussions with Nigel where he said, look, I've considered, this is before obviously he was in Parliament, but he said, look, I'd considered just launching Farage Media. And actually, I would argue there would be a much more powerful platform for him to do that independently on his own, without the regulation, without the straitjacket. Because if you watch Farage on GB News now, it's such a sanitized version, you know, it's so watered down. But first, I'm very excited about today. Brand new sponsor. I have wanted to talk to you about this one for such a long time because, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. If you're anything like me, you have spent so much time trying to find the perfect skincare treatments for your face, only to realize you've been neglecting the skin on your neck. And as I've got older, that's a massive oversight, let me tell you, because the neck is on display all the time, yet so many people, especially women, treat it as an afterthought in their routine. But so many women in the Outspoken audience will know that the skin on your neck is actually thinner, more delicate, and less oily than face skin, which means it requires specialist care. And that's why I was completely blown away when I received my Go Pure Titan and Lift Neck Cream. It's a product which is transforming the necks of women and some men all across the globe. It is such a gorgeous product. I saw a noticeable difference actually within weeks, and I know it can become a game changer for you too. Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off GoPure using the code DAN at checkout. So just head to gopurebeauty.com/Dan, use the code DAN, and you're all set. But let me tell you more about GoPure's proprietary firming complex, because it is designed to visibly firm and smooth skin on the neck and chest in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. In a consumer study, 100% of users, that's right, 100% of users said the skin looked more supple, 97% noticed a firmer appearance. Indeed, GoPure's full line of science-backed skin and body care have delivered for over 100,000 real women with real results. It is dermatologist recommended and cruelty-free. Plus, with over 1 million jars sold, this beauty secret, well, it's no longer a secret, folks. So tighten, lift, and restore elasticity in your neck, because your skincare routine shouldn't stop at your jawline. And for a limited time, Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off GoPure using the code DAN at checkout. Just head to gopurebeauty.com/Dan, use the code DAN, and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask you where you heard about GoPure, tell them it was after watching Outspoken. You will not regret it. But now, back to the show.
I think it's a victim of two things, okay? And I think GB News and other channels are a victim of two things. One, it's authoritarianism, Okay, it's that sense of you are not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to do that, you're a threat, you're a challenge, all of those things. Okay, so you must kowtow and bow down. The other thing to enforce all of that kind of stuff is censorship. Okay, and my worry is that channels like GB News are going to self-censor. I think there's lots and lots of evidence that they are doing that.
Oh my God,
okay?
they are. They
And
are
that is
already. I mean, so
Absolutely.
many people are on the banned list, Philip. Even great men like David Starkey is banned. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but absolutely. So that is happening. But if they want to serve the general public, and if they want to serve the public that is probably going to vote reform into government in 2029, then they need to listen to what that general public wants. And it's very simple, okay? That public wants a robust critique of government, of establishment, of institutions. It wants a pushback on mass immigration. It wants a rejection of identity politics. It wants to hold politicians, all kinds of politicians, to account, okay? And it wants to root out lies. Now, if GB News and other channels don't do that, then they are failing that public that, if you remember, a few years ago were just desperate for a new voice in the news and current affairs sphere. We're absolutely desperate for it, and people will turn away from the channel if they carry on the way they're going, because we've seen that already. It's people like you, it's various other people. All of these channels are getting huge numbers of views, and it's simply because it's unvarnished. It's the truth. It's robust. I mean, I just looking back and remembering your debate with Rupert Lowe, for example, that was one of the best interviews I'd seen for quite a long time.
And GB News will not have him on. GB News will not have him on.
And GB News won't have him on. Just to finish the point,
please.
Sums up for me the real kind of problem. And if they are going to survive and prosper, and I do go on to GB News sometimes, and I hope they do survive and prosper, then they really do need to think about their audience, because they're a commercial operation.
Indeed, I think the problem is that all of these mainstream media organizations, Philip, are now attempting to take down the independent media. So to do that, they are almost saying to the regulators, look, we'll help. I mean, the other day, the Daily Telegraph derided myself and Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson and Lotus Eaters, a whole load of us, as being alt-right. Now, actually, alt-right, I mean, I'm happy to claim that label, the new meaning of the term alt-right, but the initial meaning of the term alt-right was to be a white nationalist. So that's actually an absolutely defamatory term. And the Telegraph has written this article about Farage. And I think what's so shocking, you would hope the Daily Telegraph would be arguing for free speech, but actually, because they're so threatened themselves, as a result, they seem to act as if this is like a really normal thing. So let me take you through what they wrote specifically about Farage and GB News. They said politicians will be banned from working as news presenters under a crackdown from Ofcom, as the regulator seeks to tighten rules following a High Court row with GB News. The media watchdog confirmed on Monday that MPs will be banned from presenting the news on any type of programme, whether that be on TV or radio. Bosses have sought to shore up the policy after a judge previously ruled against Ofcom during a spat with the startup broadcaster, ultimately concluding that the regulator's rules were not enough. However, this latest ban threatens to reignite the clash as GB News continues to employ Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. The initial dispute was sparked after Ofcom accused GB News of breaching impartiality rules by using Jacob Rees-Mogg as a news presenter. It subsequently launched a series of investigations into GB News broadcasts, including shows presented by Esther McVeigh and Mr. Farage. Tensions peaked when GB News challenged Ofcom's findings in the High Court, which ultimately ruled that the broadcaster had not breached impartiality rules. This was on the basis that the rules only covered news programmes and not current affairs. It marked the first time that Ofcom had lost a legal challenge against one of its broadcasting decisions, prompting it to drop its other investigations into GB News as it scrambled to rewrite its rulebooks on politicians appearing as TV presenters. This meant it halted a number of inquiries. But here's my issue. The chief executive of GB News, Angelo Frangopoulos, rather than saying, and what I believe GB News should come out and say to this, Philip, is to hell with you. We are going to broadcast what we want. We're going to do it responsibly according to our own editorial charter, but we're going to broadcast what the hell we want by who the hell we want. You take us on air off air if you want, but that will cause an international scandal. We'll get more publicity than we've ever had. Lots of people will come to find us in the online space, and you'll look like North Bloody Korea. But instead, he's written this new piece in the Daily Telegraph saying Ofcom's jailer mentality is harming Starmer's growth plan, but offering to work with the regulator to come up with a new set of regulation. Like, that's nuts. How can you be a free speech channel saying that you want to create a new regime of free speech regulation? And I'll tell you what it will mean as well, because I've seen this from all of my old employers. They want to shut down, I don't mean me specifically, but they want to shut down people like me, people like you at the New Culture Forum, people like Lotus Eaters, because they want to do that to protect their own businesses. So actually, you'll see quite often now, GB News, The Sun, The Daily Telegraph, The Daily Mail push for regulation because online, because they want the internet to be regulation because they know that's better for their business.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely the wrong strategy. Okay, it's the opposite of what they should be doing, which is pretty much what you've just said. It's what I started this conversation with, which is Ofcom can't apply its own rules. So GB News, now in a position of power, should be really pushing, should be absolutely pushing that censorship thing, should be pushing the freedom of speech thing, and should be absolutely allied with friends, with people like you and me and New Culture Forum and all of those channels, because we are singing from the same hymn sheet, or we should be. But they always do this, don't they? And it always ends in utter catastrophe for them. I'm thinking about the Tory party. I'm thinking about the royal family. They always try and appease the people who hate them, and Ofcom are absolute kind of uber left liberals who hate Nigel Farage, who hate GB News, who hate people like you and me, okay? And for GB News to try and appease those people, it just doesn't work. That's what the royal family have been trying to do for years. It just doesn't work. That's what the Tory party have done, and look where the hell they are, Now is the time to be brave, because we've come to the end of an era, Dan. We're at the end of this uber liberal era that probably started about 10, 15 years ago, and it starts with all the kind of activism that's just been hell for this country. Okay, you can map it. Okay, it's Me Too, it's BLM, it's lockdown, it's trans, it's environmentalism, it's Hamas, all of that stuff. People are just so sick of that stuff. What they want is media outlets that will absolutely destroy all of that stuff, because that stuff is destroying their country. Okay, so GB News has an opportunity now, and I hope it steps back, I hope it thinks, and I hope it kind of steps in line with us and really pushes back on all of this stuff, because that's desperately what people want. Ironically, that's why people are voting for reform, and that's why people want reform to stay on the right. People desperately don't want reform to do the same thing either. They don't want them to slide into the middle, and all the evidence suggests that reform are doing that. So I would put this plea out to GB News, to reform, to all of those things. Just stay to the right. That's what people want.
Totally. Be bold, be brave. Follow the MAGA playbook of Donald Trump. I could not agree more, because at this point, trust me, there are senior executives working for the Ofcommunists who view it as their mission in life to shut GB News down, to take GB News off air. Call their bluff. Do not think that you can negotiate with the enemy. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.